Welcome to Mi Gente on Air on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online WSGW.com. Now, here is your host, Larry Rodarte.
Hello, welcome to Mi Gente on Air, a show here on WSGW with a different perspective from a lot of the programming on this station. But I'm here, and my name is Larry Rodarte, the host, as he said earlier, a little bit on the English side there, but it is Rodarte, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm here today, July the 15th, right in the middle of summer, right? And each week I try to come on here and bring a show to my audience, and whether it's in the entertainment industry, like we've done a big push for the 60th anniversary of Question Mark and the Mysterians, 96 Tears, or whether it's something related to the culinary aspects of Saginaw, whatever. It's all kind of pertaining to the Latino community of the Great Lakes Bay region. And although it is targeting Latinos, it is for my non-Latino audience as well, because they can learn from what Latinos are experiencing here in the Great Lakes Bay region. And high on the topics these days, these weeks, of course, is the immigration issue. And that's what my show is going to be about today, because I think it's really important that I speak out in regards to what is happening. I think that a lot of people are speaking out because of the recent killings, again, by ICE agents, the rogue ICE agents, who are not performing due process in the stopping of vehicles, where a man was killed, a father, a husband who was killed in Houston, as well as a man in Maine yesterday, Joan Duran Guerrero, who was only 26 years old, from Colombia, and he had a Social Security number, was okay to be here in the United States, and yet he was targeted by ICE agents. And they lost their lives, both men. And I'm hearing today also in St. Augustine, Florida, beautiful, historic St. Augustine, Florida, Haitian immigrant was also killed today, running from ICE, actually, in the streets of St. Augustine, and lost his life when a semi-truck hit him and killed him. 3 individuals in our country on the streets of America who have lost their lives due to ICE. And, you know, the due process that we as Americans, we expect, I believe it should be for any human life in this country, especially somebody who's been cleared to be here to work. Because, like Joan Duran Guerrero, you know, immigrants are known to be hard workers. And in the car with him was a 3-year-old daughter of his. And believe it or not, get this, the man in Houston, Lorenzo, as well as Joan in Maine, they weren't the targets of ICE. That's not who they were looking for. It was mistaken identity on both cases. And so here we are in 2026, where American citizens as well as immigrants in this country are being killed on the streets. Is that the America that we want? Is that the America that any of us who are of age have fathomed in our lifetime? I know in my 60 years, I never would have thought that I would have seen this in my country. And I see where people post still to this day where they say, you know, if you don't like it, if you don't like America, then go back to Mexico or go back to wherever you came from or whatever. It's not even that anymore. You know, because as you know, we just celebrated 250 years in this country. I'm very proud to be American. I'm very proud of my country and its history, and I love America. Yet, I don't like what's happening towards immigrants. And most of these immigrants who are being targeted are of Mexican descent, who have come from Mexico. There are other countries we know, from Haitian and everywhere else, Somalia, but a majority are those that look like me. They look like my cousins here in Saginaw, Michigan. I see the men that they are arresting and detaining and murdering, and they look like my family. So yeah, I'm going to speak out, because I believe to be quiet and not talk about this issue, especially on a platform like this that I have been fortunately given, I don't want to be complicit by not speaking out. And I think we all have to speak out now, because this is a hot topic in America today. And I know so many people are probably tired of hearing the names Renee Good and Alex Preddy as examples of they were murdered by ICE back in January in Minnesota. And the list keeps going on and on. The names keep coming. This week, 3 dead. And the thing is, back in January, a bill had passed where they were going to allow and have cameras on these ICE agents. They were going to wear vests that had cameras on them. In all these situations currently, in July of 2026, there are no cameras still. I believe in April as well, a $20 million bill passed. And yet here we are in July, and there are no cameras in each of these incidents, whether it's in Florida, whether it's in Maine, whether it's in Houston, Texas. And I saw also today in New Jersey, an American citizen was detained, thrown up against a wall, thrown to the floor by at least 4 ICE agents, and he wasn't allowed due process, or wasn't even allowed to identify himself. And yep, he looked like one of my cousins. And thankfully there was a man, an African-American man, who was videotaping the whole thing, and was just blown away by the idea that this was happening in America today in 2026. And so I'm a little emotional today on this very hot day. We've been having an extremely hot summer, El Nino. I don't know what it is, what's going on. And I guess you could probably hear it in my voice, the frustration that I feel as an American citizen. I am of Mexican-American descent, yes. And I'm very proud of that. And I love my culture. I love my people. And I know their story, and I know their history. And I know how the border crossed us. And I know how so many immigrants who come to this country come to make a better life for themselves and their families. And it doesn't just apply to people today that are of Mexican descent. It applies to many of those that are here in this country, whether they were Italians, whether they were Germans, whether they were from England. It's happened. Immigrants have made this country. I'm the product of an immigrant. And so many of my fellow Mexican Americans here in Saginaw are products of immigrants. And that is why they're here. Whether their grandparents or their parents came from Mexico, whether they came because of the migrant fields, whether they eventually got jobs at the Gray Iron General Motors plants, that is why they're here. And so many are here to stay and aren't going anywhere. Because now we are embedded, we have assimilated, we are 3rd, 4th generation, yet we cannot turn a blind eye to what is happening to the very same people that are like us, that look like us. And if anybody wants to come on my show and wants to counter what I'm saying in regards to immigrants and fellow Latinos here in Saginaw County, be my guest. Come on. Be my guest and be on my show, and let's talk about it, because I have gotten some pushback from Latinos, Saginaw Latinos, who are saying that, yes, that I should have a counterpart of talking points against what I'm talking about on my show. And I welcome that. I don't mind. So that's where we are today, and it's really sad that, these ICE agents wearing masks, you don't get to see who their faces are. I'm sure that many of these individuals, especially these two men who were, gunned down in the streets of America, they weren't even sure that they were being targeted until those ICE agents somehow block them in with their cars, and then they block them in, and then they are fearful at that moment in their lives. And you've heard it where ICE agents have said that they were fearful for their own lives or for the public, and so they shoot him. The young man, Joan, who was 26 years old, Joan Duran Guerrero, he was shot in the face multiple times while his 3-year-old daughter watched. And to those who may be listening to my voice and listening to this program today, it may not happen to you. It may not happen to your family. You may not have any concern in regard to the safety. But I'm telling you, if it can happen in Maine, if it can happen in Houston, if it can happen in St. Augustine, Florida, if it can happen in Minneapolis, Minnesota, it can happen here as well in Saginaw, Michigan. Don't think it can't. And when you have non-trained rogue ICE agents who are, what I would say, inappropriate for the position that they are in, those types of things are going to happen. Now, the czar, Tom Holloman, he is saying, they're going to cut back from actually doing arrests from vehicles and all. But he also doesn't understand or explain why there aren't cameras on the vests of these ICE agents today, 6 months after it was approved by Congress, I believe, in January. He blames it on the Democrats. Isn't that it's so sad, because these lives of American citizens, of immigrants, they're at the hands of the czars who don't have answers. They don't have the answers, and now they're being held accountable. I share posts where I see ICE agents that are attacking or arresting or detaining and not giving due process. I do it simply because I want the world to see. We're headed into November, an election, and I think the tide is turned against ICE. There are so many who may be for it still. But the abolishment of ICE has to happen in this country in order for us to go back to where we were as American citizens. I say it. I say that strongly because this isn't America. This just isn't the America that we all know. And, maybe we are being complicit and not saying anything, and we're just taking things as the norm now. I mean, my God, President Donald Trump had to pay a woman close to $6 million yesterday because she was a victim and she claimed that he raped her. Now, wouldn't that, say, 20 years ago, or say even in the Clinton administration, wouldn't that have been grounds for impeachment or removal of that president? And yet, nothing is being even done or said in that regard. Our standards have gone so low with this administration. And ask yourself, those of you who are of age, is this the America that you know and want? Is this where we've wanted to go? Is this what we want our children and grandchildren to grow up with, the young people? Is this what we are handing them in the future? Somebody asked me, I saw a post on Facebook where they said, if you could go back, and I already know that you know the answer to this question, if you could go back and not have the internet or have cell phones, would you go back to the time when before this was available to you? And I say, heck yeah. Life was so much more simpler. And I think part of that is the cause of why there's so much angst in the world as everybody attacks everybody. Every day, it seems like I see on social media individuals who are filming fight scenes that are happening across America. You know, people who are drunk, who are fighting, who are, you know, physically attacking each other in America. That's what's become. Not to say that that never happened before or what have you, but, you know, it's so right there in your face now every day. And I try to scroll through it really quick so that it doesn't, you know, more of that kind of information doesn't pop up on my phone. But it's there. It's happening. And I saw George Clooney, the actor, today saying that, you know, once Trump is no longer president, that MAGA will dissolve with him. And I do firmly believe that as well. Which, you know, hopefully within 2 years that will happen. You know, and I do want to mention that we did see Lindsey Graham pass away this weekend as well, and I've seen some of the hate that was on there. But nobody's passing should be celebrated. I don't care if you're on the right or the left. Nobody should, you know, celebrate a passing of a human being. And it's understandable why so many people are angered with him and his stance, especially against the LGBTQ community. But, you know, he at the time thought what he was doing was right, and he served his country. And he was good friends with Joe Biden at one time, and he did, you know, go along, become an ally of Donald Trump, but he served his country. And I hope that somehow we get past, you know, like when Mueller died, the president said some things. When Lindsey Graham died, people have said things, but I hope somehow we get back to civility as American citizens. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know how long it will take, but that is my hope here. And so, you know, as we move forward, I want everybody to just kind of really take a moment, step back, and ask yourself, where do I stand when it comes to this immigrant issue? Because we've gone through a lot. We've gone through a lot as a country since Donald Trump became president again last year when he was sworn in January, and he moved swiftly to try to remove and deport immigrants from this country. But I think everybody knows that immigrants are the hardest working people here in America. They take the jobs that so many non-immigrants will not take. And people have talked about, well, yeah, you know, they helped build this country. They're talking historically, but also as of recent years, so many from the Latin American countries have come here, and they're roofers. You know, they are, if you drive around in the streets of Saginaw, Michigan, and I'm just saying this from experience, you will see many of the road workers who are of Mexican descent. Whether they're Mexican Americans, I don't know, but they are of Mexican heritage, and they are the ones doing the jobs out in the hot sun. And boy, it's been hot, right? They're the ones who will work the fields from early in the morning to late at night, trying to make that money for their families for a better life. And so I know the history. You know, my father was a migrant worker who worked the fields, whose father was an immigrant and came to this country. And I have heard the stories from my own father and from his family, and how difficult it was to just talk about the days when they had to work the fields, and yet they went on to be entrepreneurs in this beautiful city of our Saginaw, Michigan. And so, you know, I'm kind of somber today, and I don't understand why the killings in the streets of America are still happening. Here we are in July of 2026. We've seen what happened in January in Minnesota. And man, kudos to the people of Minnesota who came out and fought back and pushed back. Because we had never seen it rise to the level that it had, and the killings that happened there for people of goodwill who tried to help humanity. And, now things cooled down. Now we're back at, killings on a daily basis. Is that where we're going to be, where we're going to have immigrants being killed on the streets of America and be okay with it? I don't know. I just don't see that can continue on, because there's just going to be a lot of people getting more and more angry. And I know those that may be MAGA, I know that some have said, well, this is what I voted for. Well, if this is what you voted for, then, it's sad. It's a sad day in our history, because no human being is worth being hunted down by like a dog in our country. No human being should be. And it's just really sad that these men who have families, the man in Houston had 3 adult sons that he put through college. He worked for so that his sons could go to college, and they are American citizens, and they have to witness this and find out through social media that their father was killed in the streets of America. That's uncalled for. So thank you, everybody. I am going to go into commercial break real quick, and then we'll be back more to talk here on Mi Gente on Air.
.99%.
This is Mi Gente on Air on WSGW.
Welcome back. I am your host, Larry Rodarte, and I'm here in Saginaw, Michigan, in the Great Lakes Bay region, and it's a hot day here in July. I love July. I love the summer, but I'll tell you what, we've been going through some real heartache, and I mean heartache, with the heat. It's been pretty hot, and I hope everybody staying out there is staying cool. I don't know when things are going to cool down, but this heat has really gotten to me this summer. I don't remember a time where it's been this hot for the long period that it has. I remember last June, the end of June, it was like 5 days straight where it was really hot. In July, it hasn't been too much better. Even the 4th of July was pretty hot. In the morning, the rain came, and then it cooled down, but we were right back at it, right? But so today, my program here on Mi Gente on Air is in regards to the immigration issue and what's happening in America, the streets of America, I should say, because you've got ICE agents who are killing people, killing human beings, killing American citizens, killing immigrants, killing fathers, sons, husbands, and it's just not right. A man died, he was 28 years old, trying to flee ICE. He was a Haitian immigrant. He died in St. Augustine, Florida today, and he was the 3rd death tied to the ICE agency in a week. He was hit by a semi-truck, died instantly. In Houston, Texas, beautiful Houston, a man was shot dead by ICE who was not the target, and there was no camera to record it. And his son speaks out eloquently in regards to his father and the love that he had for him. And he said, one of the things that really touched me was he said that when his father was laying on the street there dying, that he knows that his father was thinking of them, his family, his sons, his wife. He put those sons through college. He worked hard so that they could have the American dream, and they are American citizens born in this country. And it's just so sad to me that he wasn't even the target that they were after, they were looking for, and yet his brother, who was in the van that he was driving, testified, and they're trying to get him removed out of the country too, so that he can't testify against ICE, because prosecutors in Houston are going after ICE. when asked about the recent ICE-related fatal shootings in Texas, the Houston top prosecutor, Harris District Attorney Sean Taylor, said that the actions of federal immigration agents in no way resemble the tactics of every law enforcement agency. The tactics of every law enforcement agency working in America does not resemble it. Either these agencies are completely untrained, which they seem to be, or intentionally putting themselves in situations where they can justify firing into cars, Taylor said. This is a Houston prosecutor, the main one of Harris District. So, that's what's we're going to see that play out, Hopefully there'll be due process for this family and that they will have justice for this killing that never should have happened. And I'm sure the same thing that is going on in this young man who died in Maine. But it's unacceptable that these ICE agents are not wearing body cams, as the czar, Tom Holman, had promised that they would be. And notably, these officers involved in these fatal shootings, seem to not give due process to these individuals. It's just not something that we as Americans should accept. It's not wise for us as Americans to accept. And so I hope more and more people speak out in regards to what is happening so that it stops. Can you imagine if this was your family member? And it's not even about whether you're legally here or not, because there are Americans that are being detained and stopped. Like the man in New Jersey today, who looked like my cousin, thrown up against the wall, thrown to the hard cement floor by 4 rogue ICE agents. How fair is that? Couldn't even let them know, because how they detained him. Couldn't even let these ICE agents know. Couldn't identify himself as an American citizen. There are so many of us that are American citizens of Mexican American descent. I think the population here in Saginaw, Michigan is about 15%. And it's something that I worry about for my young nephews. Something I worry about just for our community at large. Because as you notice, ICE is popping up in a lot of different areas in the country now. It's no longer the big cities like Los Angeles or Chicago or Minneapolis. Bedford, Maine, can you imagine? That's where this Joan Durango Guerrero was. And it's just so sad that his wife witnessed the killing. His daughter witnessed the killing, who was riding in the car with her father. Is there no heart with these ICE agents? To see a child in a car and kill her father? A 3-year-old. Will she remember? I don't know. Probably not. I'm sure it will affect her in some way. It's definitely going to affect her that she's not going to have a father for the rest of her life. And he was from Colombia. Probably wanted a better life for his family for all the atrocities that go down in that country. So, if you're mad at me talking about this immigration issue, and there are some who are, question where your heart really stands with humanity, because I just can't see or fathom, as a Christian, as a Catholic, how we can be so hard and so hateful as a country towards the immigrants. But that's just me, I guess. And I know that I have family members, I have friends who they are so MAGA, they so believe in what's going on. This is what I voted for. And they would continue to do so knowing that they have family members that can be affected down the road and in their future. Just blows me away. Because all of us who are here, like I say, we are the product of immigrant grandparents, maybe parents, maybe great-grandparents, who came from another country and built this America that we know today. And why you choose to ignore what's going on, that's on you. And it's sad. It's just really sad. Because, the democracy that we have known, that I have known, I'm going to speak out and I'm going to fight for it. I don't care if it's one man individual or a group of people. I'm going to speak out against them if they're in the wrong. And we know they are. In our heart of hearts, we know they are. If you don't, well, then we live vastly different lives, and that's okay too, because that's what makes America great, right? But we are in a democratic country that these types of tactics that are happening in the streets where people are dying, that's third world. And that's where we have become, because we want so badly for immigrants out. We want them out of our country, don't we? They did no good. They're nothing but rapists, murderers. Yeah. Those are the talking points from the MAGAs in the right wing. And we all know better. We all know better. And for the most part, most immigrants commit less crime than what they're being held to or what is being spoken. It's just so sad, I cringe when I remember Donald Trump winning the presidency in 2024. And yet, I didn't think it would get this bad. I was, happy when Joe Biden won, yes, in 2020. And how we have gotten to where we are today, I don't know. I don't recognize this country. I don't recognize it for where we were or what we have been. It's 2026, people. We got to wake up. And in November, we got to vote to, really make a lame duck presidency. I said it. I said what I said, right? But that's what we have to do. We have to make sure that he's being held accountable and that he can't just be at the whim and call for immunity for unacceptable behavior from these ICE agents, or for doing a weaponized fund as he had in some of these great judges who are going against and pushing back. Kudos to them. Because we just can't go on the way we have. And I'm sure it's going to continue. We got, 2 years of his presidency and a few months left. And I agree with George Clooney. I think that once Trump's presidency is over, MAGA is going to be over with. And may it never happen again. And that's just my opinion. And I'm saying it here on my show. And I listen to sometimes, unfortunately, to Sean Hannity, and I hear what he says, and he has no pushback. But like I said, I'm willing to invite anybody who wants to come on the show and talk their points. But I don't typically like to talk politics. You know that. I rather would talk about cultural issues that are happening within the community, or promoting an event, or historical aspects of our community. But I can't just sit back and sit there and see what is happening in this last week. Whatever's we've got going on in our country, whatever we got going on in our communities, whatever we got going on with our lives, our families. We can't just ignore this issue and watch Americans die in the streets of America. It's got to be affecting everybody. I know it is. Maybe to some extent more than others, but, you know, hold your politicians, hold their ears, and tell them how you feel, so that somehow, you know, we can really get to more of a civilized nation that we once were, because that's not where we are today. And it's funny, I do have a lot of friends outside of our country, you know, from having exchange students through the years, and it's just they can't fathom what's happening to the United States of America and what they have seen. And, you know, this administration, they think it's a joke. They laugh. They laugh at us as Americans. And how did we allow this to happen? And, you know, I personally feel that, you know, there's so many, you know, who believe in white supremacy that we didn't even know that we're our own neighbors. And I say that because you look at what happened in Washington, D.C. during the 250th celebration. White nationalists marching in Washington, D.C. And we allowed it to happen. President Trump allowed it to happen. What kind of decency is that, where they were masked, didn't even show their faces, just like the Ku Klux Klan? But somehow we just keep sweeping it under the rug. We simply ignore it, and they think of them as, well, they're just crazies. Yeah, they are. But the damage that they do internally to so many people, just by their presence, should not be allowed. You know, and that's part of, you know, why this programming that is here on WSGW, Mi Gente on Air, is because we have a different perspective. We have to be more diverse in the programming. And there's some really good programs out there, and some good podcasters, and, you know, everybody has their own opinion. And we go forward, you know. We try to express how we feel, or to get information. And I see so many who are upset because of what's happened in this last weekend, that I felt it was very imperative that I do talk about this issue on Mi Gente on Air, because it's just getting so out of hand. And hopefully the promise that they're going to cut back from detaining immigrants in their vehicles, or approaching them the way they have, that led to the killings of these two individuals this last week. Hopefully they keep their promise, because they didn't. The Tsar, Tom Holloman, did not keep his promise in regards to the cameras that were supposed to be on the vests, so that we as American citizens can see how these killings are actually going down. And they always come up with the excuse that these individuals use their vehicles as weapons to run down ICE agents. How many of you believe that? I for sure don't. I saw a video today of a young girl, Mexican-American girl, citizen, who was filming as ICE agents stood out her window with the trigger, their finger on the trigger, ready to shoot, and her yelling, "I'm a citizen, I'm a citizen." And they didn't care. And they were going after a young woman. Can you imagine? I just don't understand, how there can be so much hatred for other people who are different from yourself. And the country that we live in has afforded so many a beautiful life, the American dream. And why can't we share that with others? Why can't we be giving to others who are less fortunate? It just doesn't seem right. And so as we march on and we go forward and we head towards the primaries that are going to be happening in August, as well as the midterms in November, there's really some important elections happening. I hope everybody keeps in mind how their vote can make a difference and how they can change the tide of what is happening in our country, because we surely need it. We surely need it. We need to change the makeup of the Senate, of the Congress, so that we can stop what is happening now under this administration. So there you have it. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope you have a great summer. I hope you're keeping cool from this heat. And I wish you the best. I truly do. We are here in the Great Lakes Bay region, and we can make a difference. And stay cool and enjoy yourselves and stay away from what's getting a lot of people sick with this diarrhea. What are they calling that? They're saying that it's the lettuce. They're targeting the lettuce that is happening that currently with so many cases of this dysentery that's happening in Michigan alone. We're leading the states. So make sure you wash your vegetables and especially your lettuce. I know that even Taco Bell is cutting back on serving the lettuce at this time just because of all that's happening with the health department and what they're reporting with the cases of the explosive diarrhea. So stay safe, everybody. I thank you for listening. And I know it was more of a somber show today, but that's just where my head and my heart has been as you watch what's happening in our country. And I know that we are people of goodwill. We are Christians, and that's just not the Christian way. So make sure you're getting educated, getting your kids educated to vote in the primaries and in November. We'll see you next week here on Mi Gente on Air. Adios.
Rocket Grab Plus.